Tarot Challenge, woo, the 25th to the 31st. So I know I'm a little late, but I thought I would finish it all up today. So number 25 was what 5 people, famous people alive or dead or fictional, would you like to read for? Now, I thought about this and I did not come up with anything particularly like in the famous department, because historically I wouldn't want to go back and like change any timelines, because if you, as someone was saying, if you watch science fiction, you know that's a no-no. And there isn't anybody particularly famous I would, I don't know, would like to read for. But what I did think when I thought about this, like, well, who would you really like to read for? I would really love to sit down and talk tarot with some of the people I follow in the tarot community. They're famous to me, so I think that counts. First of all, Kellyanne Maddox, if you don't know who she is, if you don't follow her, go follow her. She's amazing. I love her take on things. I love how straightforward she is. I love how she talks about all sorts of things, from chaos magic to psychology to tarot, and kind of weaves them together. I'd love to sit down and, pull some cards and talk with her. I'd also like to talk with Benebel Wen, who wrote the Holistic Tarot and the Tao of the Craft. She's pretty amazing. I've heard her on some podcasts and she just sounds like a really neat, fascinating, intelligent, amazing person. I'd also like to sit down and read cards with Ethne, who started this challenge, because I think she's really cool and amazing. I love her. She's got such a lovely, bright sense of humor, and I love her approach to the cards. I think she's really neat and wonderful. And I'd also like to sit down with Kelly from The Truth and Story. She has so much to give, so much knowledge, like such thoughtful knowledge, and she talks about all sorts of things, from geomancy to tea leaf reading cards to the Lenormand. Like, she's got a wealth of information. And for 5th person, I think I picked New Age Hipster, because she's, again, very upbeat and bright and sunny, and she has kind of like, she comes at it from a little bit obviously of a more new age perspective on things, but I really love that her intuitive way of reading the cards, I think, is really cool. So those are people I'd love to sit down and maybe not so much read for, because I think I may be a little intimidated about that, but definitely talk tarot and shoot the breeze about that, I think would be awesome. The next question was, what golden and tarot advice did you receive? Now, when I started reading cards, the internet was not a thing, and nobody I knew read tarot cards, like nobody. I was 20 years old when I picked up my first deck, and none of my friends were interested in those things. And like I said, the internet was just kind of beginning way back in 1994, 95, and it just wasn't what it is today at all. So there wasn't the resources that you have now. So I had to, like, the first deck I got just had the little white book in it, and then I got a bigger deck with a bigger book in it and was using that, and I just practiced for friends. So if I had had advice, the kind of advice I wish I had was, first of all, to tell me to practice, practice, practice. So, which is what I did. So read for yourself, read for others, read for your mom, read for your friends, and you'll get better and better at it. And then the other piece of advice I wish I had was to tell me to trust the cards. I can't tell you how many times, especially when I was starting out, where cards would come up and I would go, oh no, I'd let my logic mind override what the cards said. And if I just went with the cards, it would have gone, I think, much better. So I learned, with practice, that just trust them, because they know what they're talking about. So those are the pieces of advice I definitely wish I had had. I think, too, another piece of advice I wish I had is I wish I took my tarot reading a little more seriously younger. I definitely, when I started out, it was for fun, and that's a good way to start. But I think as I got going and got better at it, I think there were a lot of people that just expected me to read their cards for them all the time. And it wasn't till I kind of got older that I took it more seriously as a profession. So I kind of wish I took it a little more seriously when I was like younger, maybe not right away, but as I got a little bit older. But still, that's, hindsight's 20/20, right? The next question was about tarot spreads. What spreads do you use? I use, most of the time, if I'm just sitting down with someone and they're, I don't know a lot about this person, I'll usually start with a Celtic cross, a modified Celtic cross. I don't put the the cards in the traditional kind of way where it's got the cross and then the 4. I put it in a grid. Like I put the middle card with the second card over top, and then the rest, it looks like a 9-card grid, like Lenormand. And then I laid Lenormand over top of it for a Lenormand grid. So it looks like, you know, it's like a 9-card grid, but there's a card crossed in the middle for 10. And that's one of sort of my standby spreads that I use. Also for answering questions about specific things, I usually use a 3-card spread as well. I don't do past, present, future though. I do present, what the challenge is, and then the outcome or where the likely result is if things don't change. And I always look, no matter what spread I'm using, I always look at the bottom card. To me, the bottom card where you cut, it's all about your subconscious, and it's also like hidden advice, like advice about what you should do. So those are probably the 2 most popular spreads I read. But I do have, like, you know, a spread I use for relationships. I have a spread that I use for when you have to make a choice between things, and it doesn't have to be between 2 things. You can use it for 3 or 4 or 5. And then I have a year spread, which is like the 12 astrological houses with a card in the middle, sort of a 13-card spread that I use. So those are the most popular, like the spreads I use the most, I would say. The next question was about tarot accessories. Now, when I'm reading, I usually have a cloth that I spread out. I should have brought them downstairs, but there's 4 crystals I always use with my readings. I might use some other crystals as well, but I have a nice big piece of clear quartz, which I really like to use, a piece of amethyst, raw amethyst, and a piece of raw citrine that I like to have on the table. And then I have a selenite stick that's about this big, and I use that between people to cleanse the cards, and I just feel like it keeps the area clean as well. And then I also use, I have a spray, I think I have a bottle down here. There's a few of them, but this is a purification and protection spray. So between people, I kind of spritz the air. It's got like sage and lemon and lavender in it, so it's very cleansing. It smells pretty good too, but it's just used to sort of like cleanse the air and lift the vibrations up, I feel, for the reading. I also have a quartz globe ball that I like to have on the table. I think it looks really cool, but also I think it helps to kind of like keep the energies very like high vibe when you're like reading and stuff. So I use crystals, I use spray, I use a cloth. Often I'll have a candle lit. It depends. Like, of course, you know, I usually ask people, you know, whether they mind or not, because some people are sensitive to smells. So when it comes to the spray and the candle, I'll ask about that. But usually I have a candle going as well, because I kind of like to have all the elements. I feel like I have water and fire. I don't usually burn incense because that can sort of like annoy people, but I kind of feel like the spray has a bit of air and water in it as well. So I like to kind of have all the elements with me when I'm reading. The next question was about decks that you get stuck on. Like, what decks have you just not resonated with, but you're not ready to put them in the trade pile quite yet? For me, one of them is, the Wildwood Tarot. The Wildwood Tarot, I got it a couple of years ago. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful, gorgeous tarot. Will Worthington is the artist, and he's amazing, but I just found I couldn't like quite get into it, and it's a slightly different system, which isn't a huge problem for me because Dreams of Gaia is as well, and I love that deck. But this one, I don't know, but I'm not ready to give up on it yet. But it's just something about it I'm just not jiving with, and I feel like maybe later at some point I will, but I'm just not ready to give up either on it yet. And then, what is your favorite tarot card? Oh gosh. When I look at a deck, I usually look at a couple of cards. There's always like a couple of cards you look at that kind of make it or break it for you. The High Priestess is a big one. You gotta have a good High Priestess. Strength, that's gotta be a good one as well. And then I do look at Death a little bit and the Moon as well. But definitely I would say like the High Priestess is my favorite card. I'm trying to think which High Priestess in which deck is my favorite. And I'm like, oh, that's such a tricky one. I don't know if I can pick one out of there, but I have to go with High Priestess for sure. Some of my favorite Death cards. I love the Death card from the Shadowscapes Tarot. I wish I could show it to you, but unfortunately it's upstairs. The Shadowscapes Tarot is like one of those decks, like, you know, if your house was on fire and you could only save one deck, I'd grab my Shadowscapes, you know, and I'd run out the door with it. But it's a beautiful phoenix, and I think that is just such a lovely metaphor for death. Another one that I really love is the Greenwich Tarot's Death. Let's see if I can find it for you. Because there's just something really, really lovely about this death. And sort of has a gentleness to it. Like, it's not this super scary kind of death like sometimes in some of the decks you'll find. Oh, I love the moon in the Greenwich. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love that. I know not everyone likes faces in their moon, but that one's okay. Come on, Death, where are you? Where are you, Death? Probably towards the back. Ah, here we go. I find this to be a lovely death as well. It's sort of this idea that death is always in the shadows, even when, you know, we're young, even when, you know, life is new, and you've got the moth there. And it's just like this reminder, but it's like a soft reminder. It's not like death coming after them. It's just, it's always there sort of waiting. And it's just this very gentle, lovely, I don't know, I just love this death. And I feel like he's lonely somehow when I look at this particular picture. So I like this death. And then the last question was, what will you not do in a tarot reading? You know, I don't know. There's not a lot of rules I have. One of the rules I have is I won't read for someone under the age of 18 without their parent or guardian giving them permission to do so. And that means like they have to be there with them. So that's one thing I definitely won't do. I just, you know, I remember once I had this young lady, she seemed very nice and very mature, come into the shop, but she was 17, and I just was like, I'm sorry, you know, when you're 18, sure, but right now I have to respect that. So that's one thing I won't do for sure. Some people won't read for about somebody else. I'll do it depending. To me, I believe that the cards won't show you anything that you don't need to know. So it'll show you what you need to know about that person, and sometimes it tells people like, don't worry about this, mind your own business, you know. So I don't have a huge problem with that. It really depends what the question is, and it goes by case basis, right? Because sometimes people, the other thing I don't like is when people ask the same question over and over again because they want a specific answer and the cards just keep saying I mean, I'll tell them what it says, but I think that, you know, there's a point where sometimes you have to say to somebody like, well, you know, we've read about this, you know, 3 times and it seems to be kind of giving you the same message here. So, you know, if you don't like the answer, you know, maybe you need to change some things, because I believe that the tarot is, it's showing you the path that you're on right now. And if you don't change things, this is where you're going. But maybe, you know, if you change something, then you'll change the outcome. So that's kind of what I believe. So it's really a case by case basis. So other than my like, you know, nobody under this age sort of rule, unless they have a guardian with them, there's not a lot I won't read about. It's just, you know, a case by case, like I said, or if somebody asks me something where, you know, it doesn't make me comfortable, I'll say no. So yeah, I just trust my gut on those kind of things. So that is my 31 Days Tarot. Once again, thank you, Ethne, for putting together this amazing, lovely challenge. And I love seeing all the other ones as well. So amazing. So thank you again. Bye.